A warm welcome to this GENeSYS-MOD installation guide. Today we'll go through the main steps necessary to install GENeSYS-MOD in your machine. Before I'm going to start, I want to mention some resources, some pages, web pages that are very key in helping you with the installation, but also with other aspects regarding GENeSYS-MOD when it comes to running the model and also the input data. The first one is the OpenMod for Africa training material GitHub organization. We will link all these different web pages down below the video for you to access. And so here you have an overview of all the different models in the OpenMod for Africa project, and you can access a GENeSYS-MOD repository that contains hourly data guides, input data guides that are very helpful with everything data related, and also contain a run file that we will use in a minute. And then if you scroll down, there is some more information on the model in general. And here you have the link to the GitHub organization for GENeSYS-MOD and the read the docs, which are very key in this installation. So here we have the GitHub organization for GENeSYS-MOD containing the GAMS version, the Julia version, which is what we're going to install today, some data tools and other tools that can be used for creating hourly time series, for example, and also a link to read the docs. So we will need the GENeSYS-MOD.jl repo today, as we will clone that to have it on our computer. Then we will have the read the docs, which will give you a lot of information on GENeSYS-MOD, and also is always the kind of the information hub that is most up to date. This is maintained by the people maintaining and developing the model. So if you are ever unsure about something that's new to the model, you can come here, check the release notes, check what's new. And also you have how-to guides for the GAMS version, a Julia version, and the tools. And you can also find further information on the mathematical formulation, find some data guides, and all the information from the data guides in the GitHub organization. Up here, you can also find in the read the docs. So this is really a great place to find anything related to GENeSYS-MOD, and you can also get involved, speak to the people in charge, and have some references for usage. So we want to install GENeSYS-MOD. So we go to the how to guide and we click on installation. We're going to follow these steps in general. There are some changes. I will not clone the GitHub repository using Git, but using source tree. So if you want to use that as well, download source tree. You can use Git and any other Git workable fine. That's just up to you what you prefer. If you're using something else, feel free to do so. And then also at some point, I will deviate a bit from what's explained here, because I want us to already be capable of running our own studies. So I will use a run file rather than just running a test case here in this that is explained in this installation guide. But that's not a big deviation, it's just slight difference. So before we start, you want to have installed Visual Studio Code. You can use any other code editor. We are using VS Code. So if you're unsure or if you don't have a preference, please use that. Just download it, Google it, download it. Also, we need the newest up-to-date version of Julia. Also, just Google it, click on install Julia, and either follow the installation via the command prompt or go to the downloads page, and there you can manually choose the version you want to use on your machine. So we have Julia and VS Code. These are the most important ones. And then we are using, or there are non-commercial solvers that are available that you can use. It's all open source, but these are a lot slower than the commercial ones. And so for Jerobi, for example, there are academic licenses. And so you should check, if possible, if the institution you're working with has access to these academic licenses, because it significantly speeds up the running time of the model or reduces the running time of the model, which is really nice. So if you can, we advise you to choose and get Jerobi. And then lastly, again, source tree, you can just download it and use it for cloning the repository. Okay, great. So just install them. And once you have them installed, we can start by first going into VS Code and installing the Julia extension. So we are opening VS Code. We go on the left-hand side to extensions. Here we search for Julia. You click on that. And in my case, it's already installed, but in your case, you just click on install. It might take a few seconds or a minute, and then you have the extension installed. All right, so next up, we want to clone the GitHub repository. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a new file in source tree, and we want to clone a repository. And the repository we want to clone is the GENeSYS-MOD.jl one. And so we click here on code, we copy the HTTPS, go back into source tree, paste it into source tree, click anywhere else, and it already finds the GENeSYS-MOD.jl. In my case, I will call it test. And so in the documents folder, it will then create the GENeSYS-MOD test.jl folder containing all the code. Okay, so I will call this test2, as this is already existing. That's not a problem. In your case, you can just leave it as GENeSYS-MOD.jl. It's no problem at all. All right, and so here we have everything pulled. So we have the newest version, the newest update, in this case from the 12th of June, and the main repository in the main branch. And so now we can go back to our installation guide. We have cloned the GitHub repository. Also, maybe I want to show that on the documents. If we go to documents, here we have the folder GENeSYS-MOD test2, and it contains all the different folders that we have, especially src, which is the folder containing all the Julia files we need that make up the model. So here we have the main GENeSYS-MOD.jl file, and then all the other files such as the data load and the equations and so on. All right, so let's go back. We now want to open GENeSYS-MOD folder in Visual Studio, so this is very key. And what's happening is we have one folder that contains the model, which is this one. And then we will want to have another folder that contains our run file and all our input data. And then at some point also our results. So besides this folder, we're going to create a new folder. And I'm going to call this GENeSYS-MOD run 2. And so we're going to open up GENeSYS-MOD 2 run. Now we're going to go back into the training material, and we're going to download the run file for the model. I think I've done so already. So I will open that. You can just here click on download raw file, and I will take the file, copy it, go to documents, go into the GENeSYS-MOD test2, GENeSYS-MOD run 2 folder, paste it here. Now we have a run file in this folder. And the next step is to create an environment from a folder. So we're gonna go open the folder. And in this case, the first thing is we want to open the folder with the run file. So GENeSYS-MOD run 2, I will open that. And here we have the run file. So already all the packages that we want to use at some point and the data directories. And then here we have the GENeSYS-MOD function that once we execute that, it will actually run the model. And so we're going to press Alt, J and O together, and this will start up Julia. So Alt J O, the command to start the Julia REPL. And now we're gonna just type in a close bracket. This puts us into package mode, and then we type activate space dot. Press enter, and now we've created an environment called GENeSYS-MOD run 2 from our folder GENeSYS-MOD run 2. And this is when we now want to add all the different packages. And to do so, we simply type in add revise Ruby. I'm going to install HEIS as well in this case. IP opt, CSV, and data frames. Just gonna press enter. And now it will start to install all these packages. Let's wait a second to see if that works out as we wanted. So this is going to start. And one thing I want to do while this is installing all the packages is we are also, so we have the folder here with the run file, and this is also at some point going to have a folder called input data. This is going to be the topic of the run video, which will follow up on this one. And we want to add a folder to the workspace, because now we also want to add the folder that we pulled or that we cloned from GitHub, the GENeSYS-MOD test 2, because this now contains all the code. And so this way we can, for example, open up GENeSYS-MOD.jl, and here we have all the code that makes up the model, all the different files. So let's go back to our run file though. And now we have all our packages installed. Now, how do we install GENeSYS-MOD? The GENeSYS-MOD package is the one I left out. And to install GENeSYS-MOD, we want to type in develop. And now we need the path to the folder. And so we can go into source tree, go into Explorer, and this will automatically open up the folder where the GitHub repository is positioned. And then I can just click in here. I can copy the path, go back in here, develop, and now it's resolving the GENeSYS-MOD packages. So this might take a little bit longer for you. And if we are still in the environment, no, it will throw us out. That's fine. So it restarted after the installation. So this is going to give an error now. Why? Because we're not yet in the environment we want to be in. So we have to take the steps from the beginning, and we have to take these steps each time. Close bracket, into package mode, activate, dot, enter, and now we're again in the environment where we installed all the different packages. We then execute revise, and see the small check mark here means it was able to load in the package. Let's see for GENeSYS-MOD. This might take a little longer, especially when it's the first time. All right, so GENeSYS-MOD worked out as well, and we can go through all the packages. I execute each line by pressing Shift and Enter. And as we can see, it's all working out fine. Great. So this basically means we're now ready. We just need our input data files. And once we have those, we can then start and actually run the model. But this is going to be part of the next video. What I want to do now is to finish this off. We have both these folders opened, and it's really nice when you open up VS Code to just have everything in the place where you want it to. And so what I'm going to do is I'm also going to save the workspace. And I can simply save it under the same name in the same folder. And now if I go into the folder GENeSYS-MOD Run 2, I also have this workspace here, right? And by clicking on it, it will simply open up VS Code just as it was here. So containing the folder that will have our input data, and also containing the folder from the GitHub that contains all the different GENeSYS-MOD files. And so we can access both very easily, and we can just save the project, close it, open back up this workspace, and everything is where it's supposed to be. And this way we have a nice and easy workflow. So this is it for this video. Next video, we're going to go into more detail on creating the input data, putting the input data into the correct folder, and then actually not just loading in the packages, but also executing the different lines for the directories, and then in a final step, executing GENeSYS-MOD. All right. Thank you for your attention.